Broadcasting from Studio A here at Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs. It's time for the Gardening Simplified Show with Stacey Hervella. Me, Rick Weist, and our engineer and producer, Adriana Robinson. Today's show is about pushing the boundaries. Love this topic. I've always pushed the boundaries. You can start by asking yourself, who sets the boundaries? For example, maybe the USDA and their plant hardiness zone map. But do we pay attention to it? Or do we put plants in the ground that maybe push the envelope a little bit? I mean, for me, in my life, the magic words have always been, if someone looks at me and says, you can't do that, those are the magic words. It's like, step back. Now you just did it. I'm going for it. I mean, I'm similar age to Tom Cruise, and just like Tom Cruise, I do all my own stunts.
I believe it.
Not necessarily always intentionally, but I do all my own stunts. Are you risk averse? Are you risk averse in the garden? For example, pushing the boundaries could mean extending the season. From early in the season with minor bulbs and hellebores to late in the season. As a matter of fact, I took some pictures the other day of paisley pup dog hobble poking through the snow in my landscape. So beautiful. Or the native witch hazel in full bloom in November. But trying to get the most out of the season you can. William Albert Allard, he was a photographer, an American documentary photographer for National Geographic. And he always said, as it related to his photography, you got to push yourself harder. You got to start looking for pictures nobody else could take. You got to take the tools you have and probe deeper. And I love that because taking a picture is just like your landscape with an opportunity to push the boundaries. And in my opinion, Stacey, it's in three areas. You push the boundaries with a subject, plant material. Oh, I'm not supposed to say plant material.
Oh, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not going to give you a hard time. There's some people out there.
Composition and color. So when it comes to a subject, there's so many opportunities with plant introductions. That's what this show is all about all year long. We're talking about new plants, great plants for your landscape, plants on trial, and in a few weeks we'll unveil the plants of the year for 2026. But like my friend Bridget Behe, she was a professor at Michigan State University, always says to me, people buy what they know. And I'm like, why? Because I look at hydrangeas like Incredible Stormproof or Little Lime Punch, and I wonder how I ever lived without them.
Well, they're still familiar to you.
Yeah.
That's a concept known as Maya, most advanced yet acceptable, where you have, and it's penned by this brilliant industrial designer. But anyway, it's a relation of a plant that you already kind of know. So you're not really stepping out of your comfort zone.
Right.
But you're also doing something that's different enough. So that's kind of like the perfect area. But it probably, for someone else, it might have taken a little bit of a leap of faith to try Paisley Pup Dog Hobble. Of course, you already knew it. But
Right, exactly. So I love that aspect of it. So as it relates to subject, or it can be a plant, yes, that's been around for a long time. I have some video to show you on YouTube of my banana tree when I cut it down this fall and then mulched the area, hoping that hardy banana comes up again next year. You can see the pseudo-stem. It's a false trunk made of tightly rolled leaf sheaths. I'm hoping it comes back next year, but that's kind of pushing the envelope, so to speak. And of course, pushing the envelope was an aeronautical phrase that they would use in aeronautics, but then eventually became something that was just accepted in regards to just about anything else, including art. Pushing the envelope, seeing how far you can push it.
Well, I have to say, I know we have listeners all over the country, But for our local listeners, I don't think we can ignore the elephant in the room, which is that nature has been pushing our boundaries.
Oh, my word.
Here in Michigan, just a little bit. So over this last week, we've had about 2 feet of snow here in West Michigan. Earliest I can ever remember having any appreciable snow, but certainly 2 feet.
Yeah, and I took a picture just for you, Stacey, of my dwarf Alberta spruce.
Oh, yeah?
One of your favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Loaded with Christmas lights and covered in snow.
Oh, well, that's a good look. I mean, that is the one thing that dwarf Alberta spruce is good for is Christmas lights. Sure. I will absolutely positively give it that. So, so we are definitely, when we're thinking about all of the hardiness boundaries that we pushed, all those other boundaries that we pushed back a month ago, now we're kind of like, whoa, did not see this coming.
It has been something else. Snowing. We can push the envelope on composition, our shows on layering and pushing the limits of spacing rules, plant combinations. For example, color blaze coleus is now used in sunny combinations in ways coleus was never used before. Same thing with heart-to-heart caladiums or fastigiate plants like arborvitae or altheas. And then
I'm glad you brought up the caladiums because here we are in December, and I think that the Proven Winners Heart-to-Heart caladiums are a great example of pushing the boundaries because for years, people really only thought of caladiums as strictly a summer, outdoor, in the shade.
Exactly.
You could pick white, red, or pink. That was it. And they have not only pushed the boundaries on what's possible within a caladium, but they also are selling them as Christmas plants because of all of those great red, green, bright, vivid colors. And that's a whole new way to think about them. And they look amazing. I mean, poinsettias are equally as tender. So why not caladiums at Christmas?
I agree. It's exciting. And then, of course, color. Pushing the envelope as far as color is concerned, from polychromatic riot to less conventional colors. And we've talked about that on the show, using black as a backdrop or the color orange in a landscape. So don't mail it in. And my opinion still is don't copy your neighbor. Now, some folks have told us I love it when my neighbors copy me, and that's great. But let's try some things that surpass the normal limit, so to speak. And sometimes it's just about being stubborn. I mean, it is for me. For our YouTube viewers, have a couple of pictures here for you of my blue Atlas cedar. Now, I practice what I preach, Stacey, and I move plants in fall. And this tree needed to be moved. It was in the way. Tried to get a contractor with a loader to help us move it. They were too busy. Could not do it. And I wanted it moved this fall. In addition, again, practice what I preach. I called Miss Dig. They came out. They flagged the area. Right underneath the tree is a gas line leading to the house. So I had to hand dig all around this cedar tree. And once I had hand dug the roots out, then I recruited a couple of neighbors, and we dragged that tree up a hill and replanted it.
So that's how you've repaid your debt, is helping them to shovel out of this storm, right?
Yes. Exactly. Of course, also, I did want to mention when we're pushing the envelope, new varieties of plants. I found it interesting, Stacey, that on Proven Winners' website, there's a link there where if you have a plant that you think is worthy to be looked at, because the work that goes into bringing a new plant to market is amazing. The legal issues, the costs, the work, the time, right?
For sure. Definitely the time.
But if somebody has a plant, there's a link there where you could reach out and say, hey, I think I've got something. By the way, are you a person like me who kind of pushes the envelope when it comes to USDA hardiness zones?
Oh, yes. That's my favorite thing to push in the garden. Well, spacing, of course, is also something that I push in the garden. But definitely hardiness. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk a lot about it in Plants on Track. Okay, so good. No spoilers.
All right, good. Let's save it for that. Now, 2026, next year, is going to mark my 50th year in the garden center industry. And I think back, and you recall this too, Stacey, this garden center called Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
Yeah.
They started in 1957, 4 stores. They went out of business in 2004, I believe it was, something like that. But the reason I bring up Frank's Nursery and Crafts is because for the industry, they're the ones who started the plant guarantee. You buy a plant, they give you a guarantee for a year. If the plant dies, you bring it back. That is a struggle for me and for garden. You know, you'll see some greenhouses where there's a sign in the entrance that says, hey, our plants are great. They're great quality. We take great care of our plants. Once you buy it, it's yours.
Yeah.
Take care of it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it does say something that Frank's did go out of business. So let's not forget that. But I will say that the combination garden center craft supplies concept is one that is due for a revival.
Yes.
I would love that.
I think so too. I do too. So risk taking. Are you risk averse? Risk taking with no guarantees. I think about those nursery guarantees at garden centers. And here's this week's limerick. I don't need a plant guarantee or a Bachelor of Science degree. With my plants, I take chances regardless of circumstances. Determination is my warranty. If for me you establish a border, you can't do that, you order. Watch this. Better yet, remember, don't forget to film me with your camcorder. Plants on Trial coming up next here on the Gardening Simplified Show.
Greetings, gardening friends, and welcome back to the Gardening Simplified Show, where we're talking all about pushing the boundaries. Now, of course, we are about as far away from gardening season as you can get. We've completely finished, at least here in Michigan, the tail end of the 2025 season. 2026 season is a ways away. So all of this is just for you to kind of store away and consider as we approach spring, because I think a lot of the boundaries that we're talking about pushing are things that you would normally do in spring.
Sure.
You know, not necessarily right now. So, but before we took a break, you mentioned Frank's Nursery and Crafts. Definitely something that will ring a bell for any Michigander. And I will tell you, I don't think I'm alone in this. I cannot hear the words Frank's Nursery and Crafts without smelling it.
Yes,
same here. I smell those words.
Yes.
It had such a distinctive smell to that store.
Especially this time of the year, Christmas, you walk in the door, it smelled like cinnamon pine cones mixed with fertilizer and chemicals.
See, all I remember is the fertilizer.
Yeah. Oh,
and I think it was vitamin B12. So but they all smelled like that.
Yeah.
And no matter, I went to multiple Franks when I was a kid with my mom or my grandma.
It sticks with you.
And and if someone says that, it's just like the smell is the first thing. And then the second thing, of course, is their jingle. Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
Yes.
So anyway, if Frank's brings up a smell to you, please do leave us a comment on YouTube. We would love to know that we are in good company.
Thanks, Frank.
But anyway, pushing the boundaries. I do think that, you become a gardener when you start to push the boundaries. And this can look a lot of different ways. Pushing the boundaries is another way of being able to say that is another way of saying that you're willing to make a mistake.
Yes.
Because when you push the boundaries, you don't necessarily know what's on the other side. You may fail, but the great thing about gardening is if you quote unquote fail, you've still learned something. And so I think that pushing boundaries is a really important step for gardeners to take in their gardening journey. And it doesn't have to be a big, huge risk. I mean, we're not saying go out and spend, $80 on a banana plant and then plant it and hope it comes back. It can be a small risk.
I agree. And that's why I say when someone says to me, you can't do that, the way I look at it is you're not telling me what my limits are. You're showing me what your limits are.
Yeah.
Step back. I'll show you.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because when I was in horticulture school, we did a seed, in an early propagation class. We did a seed experiment where we grew hot peppers, decorative hot peppers from seed. And I was about to take it home, and the instructor tore it out of my hands. He goes, that will never grow outside of here. And he threw it away in front of me and wouldn't even let me take it home to see what happened.
What?
Yeah, I know. Didn't want to push the boundaries, I guess.
A problem with that.
So anyway, here I am. The other thing that I think is so important about pushing the boundaries, especially when it comes to hardiness, and when we talk about pushing the boundaries with hardiness, what we're saying is, if you look at a plant tag or you read about a plant online and it says, hardy this zone to that zone, if you like that plant, you can potentially, depending on how far this difference is between your zone and where it's believed to be hardy, you can potentially find out that it is hardier than people have expected.
Agree.
And I think it's so important for everyone to realize that the vast majority of hardiness zones that we, all of us in the industry and as gardeners, are working with come from a time where information was not so easy to come by.
Here.
And it was really just, the so-called experts who put out a book or, an ortho guide or something like that. And that stuff kind of stuck.
Agreed.
So we're in such a different environment now where not only are we all able to share information, any of us can share information, and it spreads really quickly. So we don't necessarily have to be bound by the same beliefs about plant hardiness that were operational 50 years ago.
Agreed.
There's absolutely no reason for that. Now, of course, there is an element of, basic awareness here. If something is, native to, I don't know, Puerto Rico, no, it's probably not going to be hardy here in Michigan. But there are still a number of plants. If you look at certainly most plants in Asia, and even in some climates that are really unexpected, like in South Africa, you can actually grow those things in the right conditions in other areas that you would never expect. And the only way to find that out is to do it.
Exactly. Use it as a guide, not as a limitation.
Exactly. So when I give tours of our trial garden here in West Michigan, one of the things that of course I point out all of the Proven Winners Color Choice shrubs because the garden is full of them, but I always point out the numerous things where Dale, the owner, has really pushed the limits and pushed the hardiness zone. He has a number of absolutely beautiful Japanese cryptomeria in his garden. And you barely see cryptomeria anywhere in Michigan because, again, for decades, people just assumed it wasn't hardy, but they're thriving. They are, 50 feet tall in his garden. We have grown Distilium, which is considered a southern plant. Aucuba, Japanese Aucuba, grows spectacularly here. Another plant that you would look at it and think, there's no way that thing's going to survive winter in Michigan. And yet it does. And it does so beautifully. And today's plant on trial is such a plant. It is Just Chill Red Tip Camellia.
Love it.
I love camellias so much. And I know for our listeners in warm climates, they're just like, camellias, okay. Because they're a dime a dozen. If you live in, California or if you live in the South, they are so popular and for good reason, because they are really one of the showiest flowering shrubs on earth. They are a broadleaf evergreen, in case you tuned into our broadleaf evergreen show last week. Beautiful, handsome, dark green, leathery, glossy foliage. And the flowers are not just spectacular, but they appear at a time when you need them most, which is to say for Camellia japonica, which is the queen of them all, in my opinion, winter. So this thing is just in full glorious bloom in February. When everything else is just, dormant and doing nothing, this plant is just like, oh, I got this. And then there are also fall blooming camellias, and Just Chill is one of these fall blooming camellias. And that's notable because of this hardiness issue, because for two reasons. Number one, the fall blooming camellias do tend to be more cold tolerant than those winter blooming Camellia japonicas. So that kind of ability to survive winter a little bit better is already built into fall blooming camellias like our Just Chill series. And the other thing about the Camellia japonica is typically because they bloom in winter, our winters are just way too cold for that to ever happen. And the cold lasts so long that it damages all the flower tissue. Whereas because Just Chill blooms in fall, we can actually get a couple good weeks of blooming starting in, depending on what the weather's like, sometime in October and going into November. Again, as long it can take some frost. That's not really the issue, although any open exposed petals will definitely get nipped. And that's just as true for Camellia japonica in the south as it is for fall blooming camellias up here. So that combination of increased hardiness and the fall blooming can make this a good choice to push the boundaries and get a camellia here in Michigan. And they have had excellent survival in our trial garden. Now, of course, I need to couch this in the terms that we are, pretty close to the lake, and we're still planting these in protected areas. You can't just put this out on your easement where it's going to get pelted with snowplow wake and salt and everything and expect it to do okay. But if you are able to plant it near your house or protected from the worst of the winter weather by some neighboring plants, as we have with Just Chill Red Tip, it can actually survive. And so we've had great results.
Pushing the envelope many times means microclimates.
Yes, that's a very good point. Definitely. So you find those microclimates, and of course you have to plant in spring. This is not a plant that you would, or anytime you're pushing the hardiness boundaries, you always want to plant it as early as possible in the season so it has that whole time to get habituated and established before the worst weather comes. Now, Just Chill Red Tip, we do have 4 varieties in the Just Chill line, but I am recommending Just Chill Red Tip as the one for those of you who are pushing the boundaries because it has beautiful single pink flowers that are very showy and very attractive. But even if you miss those blooms some years because the weather doesn't cooperate, it has red new growth. That's where the name Just Chill Red Tip comes from. So as the plant grows during the season, and believe me, the foliage is attractive enough to grow this plant just as a foliage plant, even if you never do get flowers, which you will get some flowers. Some years may be better than others. But the new growth emerges this beautiful dark burgundy that just makes it so attractive and so interesting all year long. So we sell this as hardy to USDA Zone 7, so right on the border. But again, we've had great success here in USDA Zone 6B. Sun tolerant, shade tolerant, although you get more flowers if you at least give it some sun. And deer resistant too.
Love it.
So many reasons to push the envelope with a Just Chill Red Tip Camellia. Put it on your spring planting list. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're opening up the mailbag. So stay tuned. Greetings, gardening friends, and welcome back to the Gardening Simplified Show, where it is our opportunity to answer your gardening questions. And I know it's December, and some gardening questions are probably few and far between unless they involve poinsettias or Christmas cactus or houseplants or something along those lines. But, you never know. If something pops into your mind, you can always reach us at gardeningsimplifiedonair.com. There's a contact form right there, and you can reach us there. And you don't have to ask a question. You can send us a comment. Like, for example, if you also remember the smell of Frank's Nursery and Crafts. Or if you have something else to share with us. And listener Jerry took the time to share with us, to respond to something that I said a couple episodes ago. I had talked about one of my funniest spelling errors in corresponding with a fellow gardener was they were asking, of course, why didn't their hydrangea bloom? It was a small hydrangea. And I said, or perhaps deer or rabbis ate the flowers. I meant rabbits, but I misspelled it. And upon reading my reply, realized that I said perhaps deer or rabbis ate the flowers. You said there's a joke in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And so listener Jerry took it upon himself to find said joke.
Oh,
so,
way to go, Jerry.
Here's what Jerry sent. A deer, a rabbi, and a rhododendron walk into a bar. The rabbi turns to the deer and said, "Can I treat you to a drink?" The deer, gazing over at the rhododendron, answered, "No, thanks. I'll just have a bud."
This bud's for you, Jerry. Way to go. It's the time of year we think about cold drafts as far as plants are concerned.
True.
Jerry, I love
like that.
You have a sense of humor. I love that.
Yes. So thank you very much, Jerry, for finding the joke when we couldn't. So what do we got in the mailbag?
Let's see. Leslie asks, I planted milkweed purchased from a garden center this summer, and within 2 weeks, both plants were covered with these bugs that I've never seen before and hope to never see again.
So she says these critters only wanted the milkweed. The plants were encrusted and not happy. Shall I pull the plants out before spring? give them another go, burn down the whole garden. No, do not burn down the whole garden. What Leslie has is aphids on her milkweed, and milkweed and aphids are like cereal and milk.
Yes.
Maybe not quite so positive, but they go together hand in hand. And I think that milkweed coming from the garden center is going to be especially prone to have aphids for two reasons. Number one, because they should not be treating that milkweed with any kind of chemicals to control pests, because that would obviously harm the monarchs and their larvae, which is the main reason that people are buying and planting milkweed. And number two, milkweed is one of those plants, and there's a list of these plants somewhere. I don't actually have it at the top of my head, but I could make it. It would be an ongoing list of plants that just don't like the nursery environment. Milkweed is a tap-rooted plant. It is quite difficult to grow in a nursery situation, and that is why if you go to buy a milkweed, you might be like, ooh, I don't want that plant. That looks sickly. It will be fine once it gets into your yard, but they do not appreciate sort of the nursery environment, and they really struggle to grow there. So between those two things, it's natural that stress would cause aphids to explode. Now, the best thing to do if you have a severe case of aphids, which Leslie certainly did, is to simply cut the plants back and throw them away. Throw away the parts you cut off. I mean, of course, you may want to give it a once over for any monarch eggs. They are pretty easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. Chances are, though, they're not going to lay their eggs on something that is that infested with aphids for a reason I'll get to in just a moment. Just cut them back. Don't, leave the base there, and they will actually regrow. They'll resprout. And there are some people out there who advocate for pruning even healthy milkweed after its initial bloom in early summer, because that gives a fresh flush of growth for the later season monarchs to lay their eggs on.
Almost like
growth.
the Chelsea chop.
A little Chelsea chop, yeah. So you can cut them back. It's not a big deal. Now, the reason that you might want to actually do this rather than just kind of leave nature to its course is, number one, the aphids, they basically are sucking the plant juices out and they're going right out the other end. And that causes this big, gross, sticky mess all over the plants, which attracts flies. And it can attract wasps. And a lot of wasps will actually prey upon butterfly larvae. They are predatory. So those environments can kind of encourage them. And it's also just kind of nasty looking. So most aphids are plant specific. So the reason you didn't see these bugs pop up on anything else in your garden is because there are generalist aphids out there. But very often, the different types of aphids will really stick to one plant. They aren't just going to get on one plant and then spread through your garden like wildfire. They will just be like, hey, I'm a milkweed aphid. I'm staying on the milkweed. So not really a huge cause for concern. I think that growing now in your garden, they should be absolutely fine, but it's always best if you can avoid stress. As someone who does very minimal watering in my garden, if we have a really dry season, like we certainly did last season, milkweed can get kind of stressed out, and that can make it more susceptible to insect infestations like this. But overall, if you keep it happy, I don't think you're going to have any problems seeing them. You're not going to see them this year, and your monarchs will be very happy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Odds are that they're after the succulent new growth. At least that's usually how it starts.
Yeah, they like the new soft new growth. They love that. They don't like the hard stuff.
Margaret writes to us, I have trumpet vine everywhere up by my house in the garden beds. I can't seem to get rid of it. Oh, Margaret, what you need is a rabbi and some divine intervention.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, she can't get rid of it.
I mean, that's a toughie. And of course, I think a lot of people who have planted trumpet vine because they love the flowers and they attract hummingbirds, which they do, and that's wonderful, don't know just how vigorous and aggressive this plant can actually be. But I wanted to address Margaret's concern in this episode because there's still plenty of time until spring. And I know different people have different comfort levels with herbicide, but I think very often when you're dealing with such an aggressive plant, sometimes you're going to, unless you really want to be out there every day digging up every single little sprout that comes up, you might consider using an herbicide. And the time to do that is going to be early spring. As soon as that new growth starts to come out of the ground, it is soft, it is tender, it hasn't yet developed a cuticle. And it's the cuticle that if you put on some kind of herbicide is going to make it less effective because it can't penetrate down into the leaf tissue. So the best time to treat it is right when it starts coming up in spring. You can treat it very carefully with like a foam brush. You don't need to spray and worry about overspray. But generally, I would say if you are serious about managing an aggressive woody weed or an aggressive woody plant, it might be a situation where even if you're normally not an herbicide user, you consider bringing out the big guns, as they say.
And in early spring, just like, later in the year when we have the maple samaras, that helicopters come off the tree, popping up in beds everywhere. If you're able to whipper-snipper the tops off them, take the foliage off, many times they'll start to give up. But trumpet vine's a tough one. The botanical name is Campsis radicans for a reason. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid in summer, I was sent to Campus radicans. No, forget.
Campsis radicans.
That explains a lot. But no, and with the trumpet vine on larger trunks, of course, you could cut them at the base and brush on brush killer just directly. That will work. And then you don't have to be out there spraying.
And that's a good idea too. Yeah. So you need to manage the main trunks, but also this is a plant that puts up little runners everywhere it can. So you'll need to manage those runners as well. Not to say you can't be successful with a trumpet vine, but it is a plant that needs an abundance of caution in sighting it.
Got it. Hey, Stacey, Tam wrote to us in early November. I know that planting late in the season is very common. Generally, recommendations to plant 6, maybe 4 weeks before first frost. But I just saw a landscape crew planted a ton of hydrangeas and buddleia on a new roundabout. I wonder, is there benefit or harm for planting this late? How about the 6-week rule I've been hearing about? I'm in Zone 6B, West Michigan. Zone 6B, I'm in Zone 6B on the lakeshore, and I put my last plant in the ground, I think, a week ago.
Oh, wow. Well, at least you got it before the snow.
Before the snow.
So, yeah, I thought Tam's question was interesting. Obviously, the planting season is well over here in Michigan with 2 feet of snow on the ground. But a couple of things. It's not necessarily, it's 6 weeks before the ground freezes, not the first frost. Correct. That's a very difficult date to predict.
Correct.
I don't even know if it happened right now, because now this 2 feet of snow could have just offered insulation and the ground isn't going to freeze until much later. I would not have recommended anyone to plant big leaf hydrangea and buddleia late in fall in Michigan. So it's not just a matter of the time that you're planting, it is also a matter of what you're planting. But I think the bottom line here, Tam, for Tam and anyone else who's wondering these things, just because someone is out there doing something professionally does not necessarily mean they know what they're doing. As we have all seen from the epidemic of mulch volcanoes.
Yes.
One landscaper comes in, does a mulch volcano around a tree, and everyone says, well, hey, shoot, that guy was a professional landscaper. Guess he knows what he's doing. And next thing you know, the mulch volcanoes have spread. So sometimes people have to do things out of necessity. That's certainly the case with a landscape contractor planting buddleia late in the season like that. But hey, if they were told to do it, they got to go out and do it.
At least the soil's warm, right?
Yeah.
Air temperature's cold, soil's warm, plants will root. Maybe a little bit of a struggle next spring, but...
Well, hopefully these same contractors, if they're the ones who are going to come back and do the spring cleanup, are aware that everything's going to need a little bit more time to recover before they just write it all off. So thanks so much, everyone, for your questions. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll continue our conversation on pushing the envelope. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Gardening Simplified show. Stacey, I've got to admit to you, throughout my life, I really have not been risk averse. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, from running a marathon to rappelling off a tall building, and the variety of things that when I look back, things that I've done in my life and challenging myself on. I am risk averse, I have to admit, when it comes to money. I'm not a gambler, and I'm more of an investor. And I think that ties into the whole plant thing, too, as it relates to what we talked about with plant guarantees and buying a plant with a plant guarantee. Because obviously the retailer is looking to give the consumer some confidence going in, and I know how people, a number of people at least throughout the years, watching them in the garden center where they'll buy a plant and then they'll put it in the ground and then they'll forget about it. And then next year, miraculously, it comes up, which is, really cool. I've always said it's like finding an onion ring in your order of French fries. A very cool thing. Also, the USDA hardiness zone and pushing that envelope. So I'm zone 6B. And I wanted to ask you about this, Stacey, because a plant that I would never have put in my landscape, again, because I'm risk averse when it comes to money, would have been crepe myrtle. And you've introduced to all of us over this past year, and I've had a chance to see it in the trial garden also, center stage crepe myrtle. It's a plant that I wouldn't have considered a number of years ago, but now, just like the camellia that you mentioned in Plants on Trial this week, I'm going to be willing to stick my neck out and try something like that.
Well, that's an interesting case. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up because one of the factors that has kind of changed the way people think about crepe myrtle, and that crepe myrtle might actually be much hardier than they expected, is the introduction of these shrubby types. So for years and years and years, all there were these big, beautiful tree-like crepe myrtles that you can see when you go to Atlanta or New Orleans, just beautiful, elegant plants. But, if you get a tree like that and something happens to it, it's pretty much done. You got a real problem. Right. And even trying to get it to that point would be a problem. Whereas with these shrubby crepe myrtles that like center stage, because they are multi-stemmed, you can treat them a bit more like a butterfly bush or a caryopteris, which is to say almost like a perennial. They can die back to the ground and they will come back, whereas that single-stemmed tree-like one wouldn't necessarily. So this shrubby form, combined with some, increasing awareness about some surprising hardiness in crepe myrtle, has really changed it. And now it's starting to be planted in a lot more different places. But, that's also another interesting sort of conundrum for those of us who are willing to push the boundaries on hardiness. You're not going to find those plants in the local garden center because of the guarantee that so many garden centers offer. They're not going to offer something that is likely to die. So you may find yourself either traveling to a garden center when you're on vacation in a warmer climate, or, utilizing mail order so that you're getting a plant that what you wouldn't normally find. And that's the real challenge is I want to push the boundaries, but I don't know where to start because everything that is at my garden center, with the exception of houseplants and annuals and that type of thing, is selected because it survives in your area.
Yeah, very true. And that's the interesting thing about the psychology of this whole guarantee thing, too. I'm sorry for being stuck on this, and I've got the fragrance of Frank's Nursery and Crafts filling my nostrils right now. But the psychology of the guarantee, again, having been in the garden center industry for 50 years, someone buys a plant, it dies, the following spring they're bringing it back. Some people won't bring the plant back, even though it's guaranteed, because they're like, I killed it.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing it back. There are a lot of people like that. There are other people who will show up in spring. There's lines at checkout. The place is busy, and they roll in with 4 shopping carts full of dead arborvitaes. I mean, you'll see that.
Yeah, and it's like, no, not all of those arborvitae died because I did something wrong.
It's a fascinating psychological thing to me.
I agree with you, and I would also say that these same people who will, again, march up to the garden center and saying all of these arborvitaes that you sold me are bunk, they all died. That's like basically going to the grocery store, buying a steak, taking it home, burning it to the point that it's unedible, and then taking it back to the grocery store. I mean, really, there's barely a difference between those situations.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know, just saying.
It's a marketing approach that was all started back then in the 1950s by Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
Confidence is so important.
It is.
And that's what we aim to provide is giving you the information to be confident. But ultimately, I feel like most plants are pretty easy if you just get them home and do a little basic care.
Well, and the point being, with the new cultivars that are available today, like Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs, all the work that's put into developing these new varieties, there's a real focus on the part of plant breeders for drought resistance, ability to stand up to heat, and that sort of thing. So that's just an exciting thing. This, in today's day and age, compared to 50 years ago. Another thing to think about as it relates to pushing the boundaries are the physical boundaries. Now, again, I'm one of these people who's more than willing to dig in. I'm out there working in miserable weather and that kind of thing. I'm crazy. I get it. As a matter of fact, it was one of our YouTube viewers that said we should put Rick on trial as opposed to plants on trial. Yeah. I kind of got a kick out of that. But physical boundaries, and I'm thinking about something that I'm thinking about getting. I am amazed at the advances as far as electric tools are concerned. Ooh. Whether it's leaf blowers, lawn mowers, whatever it may be. One of my neighbors was using an electric snow blower this morning.
Ooh, nice.
You know, we got 15 inches of snow overnight, and he's out there with his electric snow blower. What I'm thinking about doing as far as rechargeable equipment is concerned, I'm thinking about getting a powered wheelbarrow.
Wow, cool.
Because everything I do in my landscape is uphill. Yeah. I'm landscaping the whole back dune. And so I'm always going uphill, whether it's mulch, whatever it is, dirt, plants. I'm thinking about getting one of these electric-powered wheelbarrows. These things are really cool.
I think you should get one. I mean, honestly, the thing is, when it comes to work and effort and, of course, preserving your physical health and mental health, for that matter, really, if you can, you should invest in things that make gardening easier. If you don't, you will start to resent it, and you will start to not do things that you should or want to do because it's just too much effort. So if there is a simple solution, like a power wheelbarrow, I mean, and it's also one of those things that, like, you don't even know what you're capable of once you have a power wheelbarrow. Until you have the power wheelbarrow, you'll be mad with power wheelbarrow.
It's like blindfold archery. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, there you go.
It's something else.
All right, well, I am in full support, and I think our listeners would love to learn more and about your adventures with a power wheelbarrow. So I hope that your family knows that this is number one on your on your Christmas list.
It's going to happen, and Adriana will put a link out there, right? And on YouTube. But I think this is a great thing. As a matter of fact, I have a link to Popular Mechanics rating of these wheelbarrows because I'm thinking about getting one.
Ooh, very exciting.
Another thing with Christmas coming up, good shovels. You got to have good shovels. And if you're going to push the boundaries, the shovel weight and sharpening of the shovel is important. I was on a website for forestry suppliers, and you can get these zinc-plated aircraft tubing, main shank, tubular steel, incredible shovels that will cut through anything, cut through roots, and they even give you a rubber foot pad that can be bolted to either side of the blade.
Will they monogram it for you?
I'm going to ask.
I feel like that would be the finishing touch on this. This sounds like a very serious shovel.
It is. It is.
Can you lift it?
I need one.
Can you lift it? Because that sounds heavy. I'm just saying.
I think I can.
Lightweight is also an important factor in a shovel.
True. And of course, when we're pushing the envelope over this past year, we talked about moving plants in your landscape, something that I love to do. I encourage people to do it as opposed to just living with a plant in a certain location. I mentioned earlier in the show the blue Atlas cedar that we moved out of necessity. But moving plants, and, are you a person that has to have everything in place and everything in order, or do you get an idea and you jump in feet first and then figure it out as you go? And I've always been that way. Yes, there have been some disasters, but it's a fun way to go, and I encourage people to do it. You learn a lot in the process, and it keeps you from stepping back and saying, I can't do that. Give it a shot. I'm just trying to encourage you to do it.
I like it.
Yeah. So there you go. So let's get out there and push the envelope. We've got a new year coming up. Resolutions coming up.
Yeah, right now you might only be pushing the snow shovel. I'm afraid to say.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Adriana. Thanks to you. Remember, we're on YouTube. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts and, of course, on radio also. Have a great week. Remember that smell in Frank's?
I was just about to talk about that.
Are you? Okay, good.